Hello again, IOE family. Happy May. I'm going to, in this video, walk through how to do the 5th grade stemscopes assignment. This one was a little bit tricky. You folks are the oldest grade, so we gave you a tougher stemscopes assignment to do. But basically, this one is just centered around the rotation of the Earth. And how does that affect the amount of daylight on each part of Earth? And how does the seasons affect that amount of daylight? Because as we know, the Earth is not straight up and down like this. It is on a tilt. So when it's on that tilt, the top half of the Earth, when it's facing the sun, is just going to get more sunlight. And so their season is going to be hotter, it's going to be sunnier, and the amount of daylight during each day during that season is going to be more. You folks might be noticing that as we approach the summer more and more, as May goes through and we're starting to approach June, you're going to see the sun out a lot more. You're going to see it longer. The sun's setting longer. Today it's going to be setting at 8:05 p.m., which is very late. So for those of you that like to garden out there, you're getting very happy because you're seeing all this sunlight hitting your plants. But as the Earth moves around the sun, well, now if it's on the other side, the bottom half of the Earth is pointing towards the sun. So they're going to have their summertime, and us on the top, well, we're going to get a lot less sunlight. So in here it says background, Earth's rotation on its axis causes day and night. Not only does Earth rotate on its axis, but as it rotates, it orbits the sun. Another word for orbits is revolve. Remember that. There's a difference between rotation and revolution. So Earth is tilted on its axis as it orbits. The tilt causes the amount of direct sunlight that it hits the northern and southern hemispheres to change through the year. Remember, northern and southern hemisphere is just when the Earth is split down the middle, which is the equator. Above that equator is the northern hemisphere, and below that equator is the southern hemisphere. So scientists at the United States Naval Academy gathered data on the hours of daylight in Washington, D.C. for 50 different days. This data set contains information for each season. So now this seems kind of complicated, but right below it, there's actually directions on what to do at each step. There is one little piece that's a little bit confusing because they don't use all the language that they should. So I'm going to walk through this. Go to the data set on hours and daylight under attributes on the left-hand side of the screen. Click the hours of daylight in decimals in Washington, D.C. Okay, so that's step 1 because there's a period here that I can see. So I'm going to stop and I'm going to go up and I'm going to do that. Now I'm going to look for attributes and I'm like, where's attributes? Attributes, where is that? Oh, here it is. So under attributes, they say to click the hours and daylight and decimals in Washington, D.C. So I'm going to click that and then you're going to see a change, okay? Because what's going to happen is it's going to highlight those things that you've clicked. Now, it says to drag it to the y-axis where it says drag and drop here. Drop it there. So I might be unfamiliar with graphs and I might say, okay, well, where's the y-axis? Here's a little math lesson for you, a little mini math lesson. The axis that goes vertical here, that goes straight up and down, is the y-axis. The axis that is on the bottom and it's going horizontal and straight across, it is the x-axis. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click this, I'm going to drag it and drop it. Now, boom, all my data sets for Washington, D.C. are now hugged up against the y-axis because they have no value for the x-axis. So we're going to get to that, and they're all stretched out up above the y-axis. So now we're going to go to the next step, and it says, go to attributes and click on seasons. Drag it to the x-axis where it says drag and drop here. So now we're going to go back up to attributes. We're going to click on season, okay? And we're going to drag it down to, actually, hold on, I got to see if I can do this. I got to make my screen a little smaller. Okay, let's see if I can make, just so we can fit everything in here. Okay, so now I'm going to click on season. I'm going to drag it to the x-axis. Now, all those y-axis values have a value for X, so they're able to spread out because they go, oh, I have to be over here above this point on the X-axis, and I have to be here, okay? So now the next step says, hover your cursor bar over bar at the top and click on bar chart. This is where it gets a little bit more confusing because they kind of skipped a step, and that's why I'm glad I'm making this video for you guys. So where it says bar, okay, you want to click up here and you want to click bar chart, okay? If you don't do that after you've done the first two steps, you won't see that bar chart value available and it's hidden somewhere. So if you skip a step, you might be confused about where that is. On the left hand side of the screen, click on time. So we're going to go back up to attributes and we're just going to click on it, okay? And now what it's going to do is shade the bars based on the time of the year. And it's telling you here that the lightest color is the beginning of the year and the darkest color is the end of the year. You've created a bar chart showing the number of daylight hours in Washington, D.C. during each different season. Use your cursor to hover over each bar to set the number of daylight hours for that day. So if you want to know what the daylight hours are, you just hover over it and it will tell you, which is really cool. So now the next part is, was the least number of daylight hours listed on the y-axis. When you look at this, you would probably want to look for the bar that looks to you like it's the smallest, but hover over them just in case. I'm not going to do that because I don't want to give away the answer. I think you guys can figure that out. So what is the greatest number of daylight hours listed on the y-axis? That's kind of the opposite of the first question. They're asking you to look for the tallest bar. So look for what you think is the tallest bar and then hover over that with that little plus symbol cursor. It will show you the number. You can put those two in, okay? At any point that you're doing these assignments, you're going to want to click save. All right, just in case anything happens with your computer, you're not going to want to click turn in until you're done. If you click turn in, it's going to turn in as is, and if you want to finish it, I have to reset it. So it'll erase all of your progress, which nobody wants. The length of one day is 24 hours. What is the amount of daylight? Why isn't the amount of daylight 24 hours? Now that's more of a thinking question. You're not necessarily going to get that data from here directly, but you have to think about how the Earth is turning, it's rotating. So when it rotates, something is changing on the surface of the Earth. That might help you think about question 3. Question 4, what information is given on the x-axis? So when you look at the x-axis, you want to look at what these values are here. Okay, there are 4 names of something. Think about what that is, and that's going to be the answer for number 4. What does each bar represent? Okay, each bar represents the number of blank for each blank. Okay, so you don't want to, I'm not going to give you the answer for that, but remember they did 50 days. Okay, so I bet you anything there's 50 bars here. So think about what each bar on its own represents. All right, now this is the trickier part, okay? You can type and you can change the values here. And I believe if you click, you can type in there, okay? Now the longest day and the shortest day are the easiest one because when you go to fall, let's just do the fall category together. When you go up, you just have to look at fall and you have to think, okay, what's the shortest one? What's the tallest one? And then you input those values. Now the mean is a little different, okay? So in order to find the mean, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go up here and click on stats, okay? Then you're going to click on mean. And when you do that, this little red line is going to pop up. You want to look for what value the mean is, and you're going to be able to highlight it and get that answer. Okay, so now when you go down here, you're going to put in the data for the mean, the data for the longest day, and the data for the shortest day. All you have to do is highlight. You don't have to do any math or think about it. The computer program will do it for you. You're more about taking this data and using it to figure a problem out. That's usually what scientists do. Of course, a lot of the times they do have to do their own math, but a lot of scientists use computer programs that are already built to give them these answers, so they don't have to spend all this extra time doing the math. They have their data, they have the computer analyze it, and then they can take that data and they can say, okay, what does this mean? What does this mean for us in terms of what we're researching? If you were a weather scientist looking at how the Earth's revolution around the sun affects different weather patterns, you'd be using this data to figure those questions out. So once you've input all your data here, it says on the chart, circle the amount of daylight on the shortest day of the year. Which season is this day? So you can actually go up here and let's see. I'm not sure how to circle it, but really what you want to be doing is just highlighting it and looking for the shortest bar of the shortest day and figure out which season that is. It's going to be the season that has the darkest days. On the chart, put a box around the amount of daylight on the longest day of the year. Which season is this day? This is a reverse of the last question. You're going to be looking for that longest one. Okay, now let's see. If I can change that, great. So I just want to highlight it. Okay, you don't have to put a box around it or anything. You just want to highlight it and get that information. If you really want to put a box, you can do that, but I don't recommend that. I would just highlight it and remember the number and put it in, or remember the name that matches the shortest number and the longest number. So which season has the most mean hours of daylight and the shortest? Which season has a pattern of longer days and shorter days? Those two things are very similar questions. You're going to want to look for the red line, which is the mean, that's the highest, and the red line, that's the lowest. And then you want to look at which one has like the bars that kind of are all sort of the same heights. We can see with this one, they change a lot, and this one, they change a lot. So you want to look at which one has the pattern of kind of like, you know, they're all sort of the same height, okay? All these last questions are going to be very similar answers, because what they're trying to get you to think about is how there's two particular seasons that have the darkest and coldest times and the hottest and sunniest times, okay? Using the information on the data set and the chart, describe how the amount of daylight changes throughout the year, and describe any patterns you notice through the length of daylight in this fall or spring. So pay attention to what the data does in the spring, which is this one right here, and what it does in the fall. If there's this gradual change, what does that tell you about what is happening to the Earth in terms of sunlight? And describe how the amount of daylight changes throughout the year. Well, you want to think about what's happening to a place like Massachusetts when the seasons are changing, right? We're getting a lot of different weather, different amounts of sunlight, all that stuff. So our position on Earth is starting to face the sun more. And as we go around the sun, we're going to be facing it more and less and more and less and more and less. And as that change gradually goes, there's going to be all these different amounts that change throughout. And then there's going to be this consistency during different times of the year, because we're faced kind of directly at the sun, or we're faced kind of away from the sun. So we're going to get sort of similar numbers throughout those seasons, and then the two seasons where there's a lot of change, you're gonna see gradual change. Okay, I hope that was helpful. If you guys need anything, as always, just message me and I will get right on it. Miss you all. Hope you're staying safe and healthy, and take care.